Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to my channel or welcome back. My name is Sarita. It is done with March. So today is April 1st. And I had a very sad March in terms of candle empties. I got really sick with pneumonia and then developed thrush after that and couldn't taste anything or really smell anything. And all fragrances made me nauseous. So I would say all told, that was like 3 weeks of the month. And I've started burning some new things, but given the momentum of candle burning, they're not quite ready to either review or to present to you. So I have a very sad little empties tub from March, but I will try to share with you what it is that I did burn. And there are a couple wax melt surprises in here. So there's that. In no particular order, we have 2 Disney princesses to talk about. I burned Ariel in the month of March, and I also burned Jasmine in the month of March. And I actually just posted my in-depth reviews for both of them. So we don't necessarily need to belabor the point here, but suffice it to say, Ariel was my favorite of the collection on cold. And while I've only burned 2 so far, it is definitely my favorite burn as well. It smells exactly the way that it does on cold as it does burned, which is great. The performance I thought was quite good. In the open concept, a 7. About halfway through, it started burning kind of low, but even low, it was giving off a strong 5 or 6. And when I put it finally in the guest bathroom, it kind of trickled out into the hallway back into the open concept. So really fairly strong. Ariel is an amazing, vaguely fruity, citrusy, aquatic, full of a lot of minerals. So I don't know that it's the best body care item, although I didn't try any of the body care items to ascertain that. I would say that this is much more of an aquatic conceptual than a personal care item. And I loved it, but I do love my aquatics so much. It's really great. And yeah, if I saw it on a good sale, I would probably repurchase it. That said, the packaging is not great. And I'm not in love with Ariel, the princess, as a concept enough for me to need it in this iteration. However, am I a little concerned that it's not going to come back given that it's a limited edition and given that it's a Disney princess candle? A little bit. This is one of those fragrances that they really do need to repackage as something and should be brought out in the summer when they bring out all of the surf shop candles, etc. Really, really nice. So I really hope that they continue to do something about this, but I will probably pick up one at some point on the worry, on the anxiety that it won't be coming back. That being said, I was just thinking about this. Ariel actually sold really, really well. This candle is sold out online. It's sold out in my store. You might be lucky enough to get one in your store, but honestly, I kind of thought the fragrance was a little avant-garde, so I'm pleasantly surprised at how well it did in terms of the main line. I may not be able to find it again, so there's that. Ariel is quite good and I do recommend it. And I'll link it down below, but like I said, I'm pretty sure that it's sold out online. My second favorite here is Jasmine, and I did burn this one as well. Jasmine is basically a Baccarat Rouge dupe, but it leans kind of toward In the Stars, which is a long-standing Bath & Body Works personal fragrance, one of my favorites, at least for the shower. So it does have allegedly a currant note in it. For me, it's mostly Baccarat Rouge, which is an amazing carameled vanilla up against an amazing musk. That's your main note for this. But In the Stars does have a currant note, and I have to say there is probably a back note here that's a little bit more fruity than you would expect from Baccarat Rouge, the fragrance. So I do think that it sits kind of nicely in between In the Stars and Baccarat Rouge. It's slightly less sophisticated than Baccarat Rouge, so again, that's gonna cut the distance to In the Stars a little bit. Unfortunately, this candle was filthy AF. Big rope-like wicks, and it was a mess. It was a mess. Consider considering that and considering how filthy it is pretty amazing that I'm not like getting a whole lot of sootiness from this. So the particular wax formula that they used and the oils that they used, it's standing up very well to soot. But the strength and throw on it was actually quite muted. I would say in the back bedroom, which it's a beautiful back bedroom scent. In the back bedroom, I think I could kind of get it up to like a 5 or a 6, maybe a 6, no more than a 6. And I have to say that all the home fragrance Baccarat Rouge dupes that I've tried from other companies have not been any stronger than that. And some of them are considerably less. So, yeah, I can't say that I'm kind of not surprised that this Baccarat Rouge dupe didn't do too well. It is what it is. It's very similar to First Sight, which is their first Baccarat Rouge dupe that was weirdly marketed to men in the bridal collection. First Sight is quite good. First Sight leans a bit more masculine than Baccarat, whereas Jasmine leans a little bit sweeter than Baccarat. So they're kind of on the two sides of Baccarat, but they're both very, very good dupes for Baccarat Rouge, and I like both of them. I do have a backup though of First Sight, so I don't necessarily need another Jasmine, especially considering how filthy it was. That said, if I got it for a good price, I wouldn't be like unhappy because I love Baccarat Rouge and I love In the Stars, and so it was fine. Again though, do I need like Jasmine in my world? Maybe not. Do I have any other? Oh, here's another Bath & Body Works. I've got 2 other Bath & Body Works candles. I did a little mini pistachio week. So I've got Pistachio Milk and Honey. This is a new candle for them this year. And they put it in the neutrals line. It looks kind of nice, although it is kind of a little bit of a cool, almost ugly kind of taupe color. God bless. And I've noticed that the labels are sitting really low on a lot of their candles, but weirdly on the neutrals one. And there's no reason for it to be sitting low on the neutrals candles. Like there's no fancy lid or anything. So I don't really know if it's like a quality control issue or if it's a real intentional, no, we want our labels to like sit low on the jar. As you can see, the Disney Princess ones did the same thing. But at least with the Disney Princess, I kind of got the sense that they had envisioned initially a really sparkly fancy lid that would kind of drop down. So they were accommodating for that size because they just slapped these like cheap ones on the top of it. And I suspect given the simplicity, and I'm saying that very tactfully, that's probably a euphemism for like ugly AF. Given the simplicity of their final label design, I suspect that they were envisioning a really fancy lid on these. So that makes sense of why that label is sitting really low. There's just no reason for the neutrals to be sitting that low. Anyway, just needed to flag that for you if you needed something to complain about or, you know, whatever. So Pistachio Milk and Honey, brand new. And friends, this is a dupe for Sol de Janeiro. So the notes were supposed to be toasted pistachio, cozy shea butter, and whipped vanilla musk. You know that we're already going in not a gourmand direction with the shea butter and the musk. It's very delightful on cold. It's very close to that Sol de Janeiro like toasted pistachio, carameled vanilla kind of fragrance. Unfortunately, it got extremely filthy, and as with the Jasmine dupe of Baccarat, did not have good strength and throw. This one had even worse strength and throw than Jasmine had. I don't think it got any higher than 5 in any area that it was in, even the guest bathroom. So this was considerably less than even Jasmine. And I do not recommend it to you. And it's an absolute no for me. It was just so muted in its presence. So, I can't. I'm also a little played out with the perfume dupes. I'm played out with dupes across the board, but especially dupes of Sol de Janeiro. Like, we're done with it. We're done. And I even love that fragrance, but I think it's over. So, it's a no for me. It's just a no, unfortunately. It also like shows that you lack creativity as a company. So there's that too. This one was actually pretty good though. This is Pistachio Toasted Vanilla, which is not a new candle for them. It came out at least last year, maybe the year before that. And it was very successful, at least in its first iteration. This one is salted pistachios, toasted vanilla almonds, and that's it, which is weird because usually Bath & Body Works likes to give 3, a trio of scent notes. They just didn't here. Yes, this is much closer to being a gourmand, but I don't know that it's totally a gourmand in that there is a back note that even comes out a little bit more prominently when it's burned that is kind of shea butter-esque. So this one is this one is so shea butter musk and vanilla that frankly, the pistachios are just kind of supporting cast a little bit. Whereas with this toasted pistachio candle, it's the pistachios front and center. And then the shea butter is kind of a back note, but it is a back note and you can smell it. I think it adds another dimension to it and makes it just very lovely and delicious at the same time. And since I'm not a huge gourmand person and will absolutely not be offended if it's not in a purist way gourmand all the way through and through, I'm very happy with it. In fact, I'm even more happy with it having kind of a less gourmand situation. Yeah, it's a good candle. I didn't love the performance on this particular iteration. This is the second iteration of it. For me, the strength and throw kind of came in at a 5.5, and I really wanted it to be a whole lot more than that. That said, other people had different bandwidth with it, you know? They got more strength and throw out of it. A lot of reports said that the second iteration was weaker, but I did have a couple of you say that yours was stronger. So, you know, God bless. Yeah, it really burned fine, minimal sooting, very minimal. And yeah, just relatively pretty happy with this. I would repurchase this again, but I would also hope for better performance on it. So there's that. It's kind of a great candle to burn in that January period, which I think is originally the period in which Bath & Body Works released this fragrance. It's great because it's still kind of cozy and you've got the shea butter and it does still seem very cool weather, but it's not overtly fall or holiday gourmandy. So it's just great for like January, kind of still cozy, still weaning ourselves off of the candies, cookies, and sweets, etc. I did burn a Tuscany candle and I was hoping to present it to you in Pistachio Week, but it was so bad. I would say generally speaking, avoid all the Tuscany candles that are glass like this, that just have the translucent glass with some sort of label in the front. It doesn't matter whether they're a 3-wick. It doesn't matter if they're classic tumblers. If it's this translucent glass, they seem to be of extremely poor quality. This one certainly was. I would say that I had one good burn. Like the very first burn was actually fairly good. I mean, it wasn't like tremendous. It wasn't changing my life, but I could smell it decently in a moderately sized room. After that first burn, forget it. I mean, it just got worse and worse and worse. And I didn't even bother burning it once it got past the stage. As you can see, there was major discoloration. This was a limited edition for Valentine's Day called Forever Yours. And it was vanilla, almond, and pistachio. I can hardly even smell it at this point. I mean, the further you went down, it was like unscented. But I do recall that it was a little bit more on the almond pistachio extract side of things rather than like a roasty, toasty nut. I still kind of liked it, but unfortunately did not perform at all. And I didn't even bother doing like a dedicated review for it. I have 2 Yankee candles for you. And those 2 candles I just reviewed relatively recently from their new Tuscany collection for the beginning of the year. Pistachio Latte and also Olive and Cypress. And they were both kind of greenish candles. I think they probably should have, Usually Yankee Candle doesn't make this mistake of like two in the same collection, and to boot, a very small collection. I think there were only 5 candles in the collection. 2 that look almost identical to each other in terms of the shade. You really kind of don't want that in a collection. So I do feel as though they should have done a better job of presenting one of them in a different color. They are both lovely shades of green. By the way, they both have like this nice colored wax, but yeah, like I said, presentation on these was quite good though. And especially for Yankee, who tends to really struggle or has struggled the last 4 years or so, 5 years, 6 years with their aesthetic design. Really, they've been struggling with a lot of things, but their aesthetic design is certainly one of them. And they have also struggled with their new 3-wick format. They've not been entirely clear about how they want to handle the design of these 3 wicks. And the last couple collections have been much more cohesive with their other vessels. So they pour in a lot of different vessels and a lot of different sizes. And they usually have kind of the photorealistic, or they used to have the photorealistic ones for the classic tumblers, the colored wax, the traditional Yankee Candle look. Then in their more modern, like soy blend tumblers, they had clip arts for a while that was quite bad. And then their 3-wick would be an entirely different aesthetic. So between their different, and it would be exactly the same fragrance, but between all of their different vessels, they would just have wildly different takes. And usually all 3 of them were quite bad takes, or something similar. This, with the last couple collections, they've been much more cohesive. It's been the same marketing, aesthetic, and design experience for all of the various different sizes. And I really would like them to do that going forward. Yeah, this was quite nice. And it especially looks great from afar. Pistachio Latte, I thought when I initially smelled and hauled these candles for the Tuscany collection, I definitely thought Pistachio Latte was the winner of the bunch, the most mainline of the bunch. And now having burned a couple of them, I'm a little bit more confident in that. I do think Pistachio Latte is probably the winner of the collection, and it performed quite well. In some ways, I actually prefer Pistachio Latte to Bath & Body Works Pistachio and Toasted Vanilla. These are very similar fragrances, but for me personally, Pistachio Latte was a little bit louder, a little bit more assertive. The toasted nuts were a little toastier and a little bit nuttier, and the shea butter kind of back note was even more lovely and pronounced. So just generally speaking, I think this candle is very similar to the Toasted Pistachio one. Might be a touch more perfumey, but across the board, this candle just really turns the volume up on what is already a lovely candle from Bath & Body Works. So honestly, and I don't think Bath & Body Works poured this one this year, starting out in January and February. So if you're kind of hankering after one of those toasted pistachios, and it's not in your Bath & Body Works store, this is readily available at Yankee Candle on their website and in their stores, and I would really highly recommend it to you. If you like that Bath & Body Works candle, you are probably almost certainly going to love this one from Yankee. I do think the Yankee one might even perform a little bit louder, at least than my Toasted Pistachio one did from Bath & Body Works. So I do highly recommend it, and it really burns like a dream. This is a soy blend formula, very minimal sooting, pretty good. I do have to caution you that the second half of the candle burned considerably lower than the top half of the candle, and my performance really suffered bottom half of the candle. I will say that. So it wasn't an entirely consistent burn top to bottom, but when it was burning high, I thought it really kind of probably outperformed the Bath & Body Works. This was my personal favorite from the collection, excepting Pistachio Latte, Olive and Cypress, because it was so unusual. I don't have the scent notes for you here, but this one is kind of one of those mountain flora candles. It has a lot of fennel in it, which is a very unusual note in home fragrance. You will see anise for sure, but like a true green fennel that's a little bit avant-garde. You don't see that as often. There's fennel in here. There's rosemary in here. I think there's some black pepper in here. There's a lot of green and lush in here. It's a really unusual and nice candle. It's a little bit more commercial than kind of, I think, how a bougie company would approach this fragrance. So I've mentioned that I've burned a bougie candle from the candle company La Montagne. It's a luxury candle company. You know, they do the 8-ounce single wicks. They have a candle that's in this genre. It's called First Light. And I love that candle. It's very, very unique. A lot of ozone in it. It really takes you to kind of a mountainous space and place on the Mediterranean. This one is very similar to that one. At least they're in the same category. This one is just a lot more commercial, not quite as sophisticated, not quite as nuanced. But really very interesting and very fennel forward. Unfortunately, when it was burned, it just was not as good as it was on cold. When it was burned, it just started kind of going brassy, and I didn't enjoy the fennel note as much as I did on cold. There wasn't enough lush or dewy in it, I think. So it just started kind of coming across like a very muddy, like perfumey amber with fennel, and it just was off-putting. I kind of didn't love burning it at all, and the performance was so-so. It wasn't really that great. So unfortunately, I can't recommend this one. I do want to give them brownie points for creativity and uniqueness, but it's a swing and a miss for me, so that's unfortunate. I did return a couple of the candles from the collection without having burned them, but I still have the lemon gelato one, which I will burn later, either late spring or early summer. So that's that. I have a lone Homeworx candle that I also recently reviewed, which is Blueberry Violet Tart. I believe this one came out new last year, and was really very well reviewed by candle reviewers. And I thought it was going to be better than it was. I'll just put it that way. I am always after a blueberry candle. I just like blueberry candles, although most of them are not very good. But I'm always chasing like some platonic like version of the most amazing blueberry candle. And I was really hoping this one would be it. It was supposed to be like a really beautiful blueberry with a floral back note. And it wasn't supposed to be very gourmandy, at least by the reviewers' reviews, who admittedly are huge gourmand fans. So I think that going forward, and this has happened a couple times, I think that if I receive a review from somebody who's a huge gourmand fan who says it is not a gourmand or not really a gourmand, I need to take that review with a grain of salt. That what is probably meant is that it is less gourmand than the other gourmand candles that they like, if that makes any sense. Gourmand lovers love like straight up in your face, pure gourmands with like, you know, blueberry muffin, and it just smells like a muffin. It smells like bread. It smells like whatever. Like they like those really overt gourmands. And so when they encounter something that is kind of gourmand on the face of it, but is a less so than those others, they'll often say something like, this isn't really a gourmand, you know? But for those of us who can't tolerate gourmands very well, it's kind of a bait and switch, because when I got this, I was like, wow, so that's a lot of butter. And butter, a candle with an enormous amount of butter in it, it doesn't even matter what the rest of the notes are. For me, it's like, yeah, that's not gonna be burned in my house. That's way too gourmand for me. Butter is just one of those gourmand notes that's just kind of takes it into that deep end of gourmandness, almost regardless of what the other notes are. The blueberry here does have kind of a floral back note to it, but I can't say that it comes across as more floral than just kind of a fragrant and fresh blueberry or blueberry bush. And violet itself is not that pronounced of a floral anyway to begin with. Mainly, especially on cold, I mean, it's a lot of butter, and on cold, it's a crust. It's a crust note, like a tart crust note, When it's burned, the tart crust note does lift off, and it just kind of leaves you with a vague buttery blueberry. So if you want a buttery blueberry in your house, you might be fine with this candle. I did think the performance wasn't great on it. And it was, everybody who reviewed it thought that it was kind of almost a powerhouse. I mean, in my open concept, I was happy if I got it up to like a 5.5 or a 6 in a hurricane. And I didn't get much more from it in the back bedroom, nor did I really want it in the back bedroom because it's a butter tart. You know what I mean? So for me, it's a no bueno. I would not repurchase this, and I kind of don't recommend it. So there's that. But it is available right now at slacken.com. So don't take my word for it. You know what I mean? All right, I've got a lot of I have more wax melts here than I probably do candles. And yeah, so let's just talk briefly about those before I close out here. Look at all these colors. Ooh. Wax melts. Okay, so these top ones here are Yankee Candle. This was a centerpiece. This is from their new Sun and Games collection. This one is On the Green, Pear, and Water Lily, which on cold, it smells like one of the most fantastic spring candles you've ever smelled in your life. Oh, I got wax on me. Yeah, man, it's lush, it's green, it's fruity, it's grassy, but it's like very, very pleasing because you can have all of those things in like weird measure and they just kind of come off like a novelty candle. This does not. This is so well balanced, beautiful, pleasing. By the way, somebody told me, you know, because they didn't have the wax melts. So somebody was like, oh, just get a centerpiece and then like cut it into pieces and put it in your... It sounded a lot easier than it was. I don't know if I'll be doing that a whole lot in the future. Like I had to get my kitchen knife out and I got wax all over my kitchen counter and wax all over my fingers. And like, it was kind of a mess. So all things being equal, I would just buy the wax melts. You know what I mean? I guess if you have more bandwidth than I do, more patience than I do for those kinds of things, fine. So I melted it. I just cut the centerpiece in half. I love it on cold. Unfortunately, oh, I think there's some melon in this too. I love it on cold, but when it was burned, it first of all had like negative strength and throw. Like I'm pretty sure that it like removed fragrance from my house environment, like a black hole. Secondly, when I was like hovering over it, trying to get some amount of scent, it just, and many of Yankee Candle candles have done this lately. It just went like perfumey. Like all I was getting was amber with like some vague sense of greenery. And it just, all the majesty and lushness and authenticity and freshness of the original fragrance was just gone. So I went ahead and I did buy the 3-wick of it the last time that I was at a Yankee Candle Company this week because I wanted to return a couple candles and they were gonna allow me to just return and exchange them for other 3-wicks. And those were the two fragrances there were 2 fragrances in the Sun and Games collection that I wanted in a 3-wick, and they're not currently on sale. So the fact that they were allowing me to exchange them, I'm like, yeah. So I went ahead and got On the Green, but I'm kind of nervous. I'm nervous about the way it's gonna perform. And if it's anything like these wax melts, like it's just a shame. Again, as with Olive and Cypress, it's just really unfortunate when like a beautiful fragrance that you smell on cold is just not replicated once it's melted or burned. It's just really, really, really sad. All right, so let's move on from this. I have a couple wax melts from Chestnut Hill, which is a small company, technically in West Virginia, but kind of Ohio too, because it's really close to like Youngstown, Ohio, I think. It's like that place where like West Virginia meets Ohio meets Pennsylvania. It's like 3 states all in like one 20-mile area, if that makes sense. So I just recently became aware of them from one of you guys who recommended them, and I bought like an entire box of wax melts. So I'm just little by little kind of going through them. I've had misses, I've had hits. I'll just put it that way. The hits are amazing hits and the misses are amazing misses. We will just say that. I mean, the misses are like completely unscented or really bad, like in terms of fragrance, and the hits are like some of the best experiences that I've had in that genre of home fragrance. So it's a very tough read for me on Chestnut Hill. Most candle companies have their hits and misses, but it's been kind of interesting that like the 4 fragrances I've melted so far have just been so erratic. This one was a real win. This is Over the Rainbow, and I don't have the scent notes here for you, but I was not sure about this one initially. So fun fact, I babysit for one of my friends, just really as a favor. And there are 2 girls, like I think one of them is maybe like, I don't know, their ages change every year. It's so frustrating. I can hardly remember my own age because it changes every year. Sometimes I have to remember my birth date and then do math on my fingers. Like how pathetic is that, you know? And the person who's asking you is just staring at you like, really, is this an adult human? Like, it's just so embarrassing. Anyway, I think one is like maybe 10 or 11 and the other is like 13 or 14. So they're kind of in that age group. They actually have fairly sophisticated candle scents. And what they love is when I bring over like a huge box of like Kringle daylights or wax melts, especially if I have new ones and they smell through them and we rank them and we talk about our favorites. It's really fun. So I took that entire Chestnut Hill box over there and we went through wax melts. And for the most part, we all agreed on certain strengths and certain weaknesses. This was the one that we all disagreed on because I did not like this fragrance and they were wild about it. I have to be honest, now that I've melted it, I think they're right. I think it's a really, really good fragrance. I think to me, it just seemed a little bit too sweet, a little bit too fruity, a little bit too pop and fruity tooty, you know, for my own personal dark and like dark heart preferences, which I totally get is atypical and probably should be reserved for my therapist, right? And I may have been swayed by this like this picture. It's like Over the Rainbow. Oh gosh. I probably like had, I prejudiced it like right from the very top. It is very fruity and it has a lot of melon in it. Now that they've been kind of melted, it's harder to get a read. Let me see if I can open it up. Yeah. So it might even have some berries in it, but definitely like kind of a melon. And it's a combination between like a watermelon and a honeydew, I think, something like that. It doesn't come across as either one, but kind of both in a beautifully blended way. And then the rest is sweet. And I don't know if it's a floral, but when I had it melted, there is an undercurrent to this fragrance that is deep and almost kind of grassy herbal. And I think that's what made the fragrance for me. Like everything else was like Bath & Body Works Plastic Fantastic. It's like all of the melons and it's got peach and it's got strawberries and it's about a rainbow. And then when you're least expecting it, there's this like deep, dark, almost grassy note. And it just balanced the fragrance and the sugar content in a really amazing way, to the extent that like I would buy this again. And this was so strong. I mean, this was one of those like wax melts that I burned in my master bathroom. And I opened the front door of my house and it was like, oh, hello. It was like really strong. The other real winner from Chestnut Hill that I burned was First Date, which was an amazingly authentic florist red rose. And it was exactly the same way. I opened the door to my house and was just met. It was like I was opening the door to a florist's house. Again, my wax warmer is in my back master bathroom, so filtering all the way through the house. So I think that both of them in candle form would probably be very good in terms of strength and throw. And I just know a lot of you guys would love this fragrance. It seems like it would be, I mean, even if I like it, like it's gotta be one that people would enjoy, right? So I do highly recommend Over the Rainbow, and I suspect it comes in candle form, but I didn't check the website. Unfortunately, this one was not as successful. This is Chestnut Hill Toes in the Sand. Oh gosh, I really wanted to like this because it's kind of a beachy, coconut, neroli, almost sunscreen kind of fragrance. And on cold, it doesn't smell bad per se, but it does smell waxy, more waxy than it should. Like I'm smelling about as much wax as like coconut, if that makes sense. As you can see, I didn't even bother burning the other side. It also performed terrible. It was like one of those ones that like, even when I was standing in my back master bathroom, I could hardly smell it. So just not successful on any level, and I can't recommend that one. What is this? Oh, guys, I melted this one from Kringle Candle. This was in their new like winter line or their holiday line called Blankets and Snowflakes. I was just melting this one yesterday, actually. So I melted both of these. I can't tell you what the scent notes are. I think there's probably some mint in this and some cashmere and, you know, all the usual suspects. But I'll tell you what it is. It is a men's cologne. Don't get it twisted. It's a men's cologne above all else. And especially once it's melted, the kind of the nuance of the spearmint or whatever else it is really kind of goes away. It's a fairly bright though, like men's cologne. But like I said, don't get it twisted. It's a men's cologne. That said, I thought it was one of the more pleasing, cliched men's cologne fragrances. And it's definitely more enjoyable than like any of the men's colognes that like Yankee Candle does for fall or something that all smell exactly the same. It's better than any of the men's fragrances that Bath & Body Works has been putting out that are a dime a dozen. Like half of them have bourbon or whiskey in the name of them, but it doesn't even matter because they all smell exactly the same and they're all as cliched and dark and heavy as they can be. I don't get it. I don't get it. There was a moment in which like men's fragrance was actually getting much more innovative, and it just seems like lately, in the last like year or two, Yankee Candle and Bath & Body Works single-handedly have been closing the door on innovation in masculine fragrance. Oh, I mean, I don't wear men's cologne, so I shouldn't be so personally offended, but this is actually still kind of a cliched like bergamot amber men's cologne with a lot of musk. But I actually enjoyed it and thought it was kind of sexy. I just don't know that it fulfills the promise of the marketing design and the concept of Blankets and Snowflakes. It's just a men's cologne. That's just what it is. I don't even know if it's a seasonal men's cologne. It's just a men's cologne. But a nice one. I personally wouldn't go out and get the candle. But if you like men's colognes, I would think about getting it. The strength and throw on it was decent. I mean, in my back bedroom, like I can put it in the wax thing, and when I open the doors, it's a strong 7. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's a house filler, but it was fairly strong. It's a men's cologne, you know? Last but certainly not least, guys, this was a winner. This is from Aldi right here called English Garden. I can't remember when I picked this one up at Aldi. I want to say it was like, I don't know, a month ago, maybe. Yeah, I think about a month, maybe a month and a half ago, something like that. This one, it used to be that Aldi's ran a good brisk business with candles. An employee told me once, oh yeah, I would walk in the back and they said there would be entire like walls of candles, like pallets of candles. That is not the case anymore. So I don't really know why their business model changed with candles. Like it was just like they decided 2 years ago, we're getting out of the candle business. Because they really would put forward some interesting and halfway decent candles. Now, almost none of their limited edition candles are worth picking up or smelling. And their wax melts are kind of the same way. However, every now and then you can run across a candle or wax melt that smells quite good for like $1, and then you bring it home and you're like, I'm obsessed, and then you go back to Aldi to get more of them and they're gone, right? That is what happened with this. So this was about a month ago. If you still have it in your store, please pick it up. English Garden. Wow, this is great. It's lilac, And it might even be geranium, frankly. Because it's kind of got that mineral, like green note back behind it. So authentic, so fresh, so dewy, so spring. Even when melted, and this, when it was melted, this was a house filler. This was one where I opened the front door and it was like, spring is in my house. Where are the fresh lilacs, you know? I mean, this is more authentic than like fresh lilac from Bath & Body Works. Bath & Body Works would kill for a fragrance like this. Because it's got that green stems and leaves back behind it. And like I said, I think it's a mixture of lilac and something else. Might even be a couple florals, but it's definitely lilac, maybe geranium, maybe hydrangea. Wow, that's great. That's one of the best spring florals I have smelled in a long time. And it is incredibly strong. It performed amazingly. So I just recently went back to Aldi and I'm like, can I get any more? And I couldn't find them anymore. So if you're lucky enough to see this in your Aldi, pick up whatever they've got, especially if you're a floral lover. Oh man, that was the winner of the month for me, really. I mean, it smelled great on cold, but I was like, oh, we'll have to see. You know how the baits and switches have been with Yankee, and it's not exactly like Aldi probably has a very like premium or luxury budget for like their inputs. But man, that was good. When Aldi gets it like and nails it, it makes you embarrassed that you would spend the money that you spend at Bath & Body Works, let alone at Voluspa or Kringle or other places. Like, why, right? But then, you know, most of the time, Aldi is just not worth even going in for. So, you know, it's unfortunately, especially now, just very inconsistent at Aldi. But I'm very happy to recommend that one. And man, I hope this comes back. English Garden from Aldi. That's what I've got for you guys. That was March. I guess I talked about things enough to like make it seem like it was more than it was. But I am on the bandwagon now. Like, my illnesses have left my body, although I shouldn't jinx it by saying that. And I'm smelling things properly and I'm burning things. So it'll be a little bit, but I definitely have, you know, we're going to get back on this horse and we're going to start, you know, having things to present. Although not a whole lot going on at any of the companies that's like particularly interesting or inspiring, but there you go. All right, my friends, thanks so much for joining me for March, and let's make April amazing. Bath & Body Works, what have you got? You need to give us something juicy soon, or we're gonna be angry, and we already are angry. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.